Hello, this is Raymond Broady, and I'd like to take you on a tour of one of my galleries, a tour or an explanation of why I did the various paintings in this particular gallery. This gallery being the gallery I call the Rural South. And the reason that I've decided to discuss the various galleries as opposed to randomly discussing the paintings is that the galleries have something in common, so that as I talk about the various paintings, I can be talking about the things that they have in common and why I did this particular grouping. And in the future, when we talk about paintings, when I talk about the galleries, that'll give some better understanding of why the paintings are grouped the way they are. And the reason that the paintings in this group are called the Rural South is because they have that in common. They're southern, rural scenery that I painted, and of course they're all outdoors. And some of the things that they have in common are the big skies. About 60-70% of them have large, colorful skies. And that's kind of what I saw in the South. Plus the big sky, the big open country and the land and the fields and things of that nature. Now, if I talk about the things that the paintings in this particular gallery have in common, one of the things that they have in common, and not all of them, but in general, they have clothes hanging on the lines, on clotheslines outside the houses. And this is one of the things that I noticed when you get outside the big cities, when you get out into the rural areas, people still hang clothes on the clotheslines to dry. Being raised in the city where we had washers and dryers, we didn't see a lot of clothes hanging on the lines. But I may contradict myself and say, as a kid, maybe up through the mid-50s to late 50s, there were clothes hanging on the lines. But in the 60s, 70s, that kind of disappeared, and we forgot that people hung clothes on the lines. But when I drove through the South, I noticed that, and so I was kind of fascinated with it. So many of my paintings will have clothing hanging on the clotheslines. So that's one thing that they have in common. Another thing, other than what I mentioned earlier about the big, colorful sky, at the time, there was a time when I had a fascination with reflections and with water. So many of the paintings in the Rural South series do have reflections, and they're water fountains, but in many instances the paintings do include water. Now I'm going to talk about the individual paintings, and I'll start with the guitar picker. The guitar picker is the gentleman sitting on a rural road playing a guitar. And this painting was from a scene that I saw when I was in Senegal, in Africa. And I saw this giant tree, and I wanted to paint it, but the tree was very, very, very large, and there was a person sitting on the road under the tree, but when I drew it, the person looked out of scale because the tree was so gigantic. It was just a huge tree, and the person looked out of scale. I desperately wanted to draw that tree, but that person just wasn't going to work. So I took an image of a man playing a guitar and put him in that scene to what I thought was the right scale. So that's the rationale behind that painting. To learn more about my paintings, visit my website at www.raybroady.com.